You have studied the behavior of price. You have defined your risk. You know precisely where you are wrong, yet when the tape aligns with your plan, doubt enters. What if this breakout fails? What if I'm early? What if I take another loss? That internal negotiation is far more dangerous than any fluctuation in price. Execution without fear is not about suppressing emotion. It is about preparing so thoroughly that action becomes automatic when the tape speaks. Before we go deeper, remember, this lesson does not stand alone. It builds upon our earlier discussions about discipline, patience, and aligning yourself with the market's rhythm. If you have not revisited those teachings, you will find them linked in the description. They will strengthen your understanding of what we are building here. And in that same place, you will find two works crafted to refine your psychological edge. Thinking like Jesse Livermore, Mastering the Market with Discipline, Patience, and Risk, and the Livermore Journal, a 90-day trading psychology workbook. If you are serious about mastering execution, study them carefully. They are tools for conditioning, not decoration. Now let us speak plainly about fear. Fear in speculation is rarely about money. If it were only about money, a smaller position would cure it. No, fear is about uncertainty. It is about the possibility that your judgment may once again be wrong. And the mind, seeking protection, attempts to delay action until certainty appears. But certainty never appears. The tape offers probabilities, not guarantees. It offers alignment, not assurance. If you wait for emotional comfort before executing, you will always be late. The move will begin without you. And then, as price extends, another emotion appears: regret. Regret is far more expensive than fear. In my early days, I believed that skill alone would eliminate hesitation. I studied price movements obsessively. I memorized patterns. I could sense accumulation and distribution before many others recognized it. And yet, even with knowledge, I sometimes hesitated at the point of execution. Why? Because knowledge without conditioning is fragile. The mind must be trained just as rigorously as your method. Consider this carefully. When a soldier trains, he repeats drills not because he hopes for battle, but because repetition builds automatic response under pressure. In the same way, the speculator must rehearse discipline before the critical moment arrives. You cannot invent composure at the point of decision. You must build it beforehand. This is why preparation begins long before the tape quickens. Each morning, you must define your scenarios. Where will you act? Under what conditions will you stand aside? Where are you wrong? What is your maximum exposure? These answers must be written, not vaguely held in memory, but recorded. Writing forces clarity. Clarity reduces ambiguity, and ambiguity is the breeding ground of fear. When your plan is written, execution becomes an act of obedience, and obedience is easier than bravery. Many of you believe you need confidence to execute. I tell you this: confidence is not the cause of decisive action. Decisive action is the cause of confidence. You build confidence by honoring your rules repeatedly, regardless of outcome. If your setup appears and you execute precisely as planned, even if the trade fails, you have strengthened your mind. But if your setup appears and you hesitate, you have weakened it. The outcome is secondary. The behavior is everything. This is the first truth you must accept. Your primary objective is not profit, it is self-command. Profits are a byproduct of sustained self-command. The tape tests not your intelligence, but your consistency. It tempts you with premature entries. It frightens you with brief pullbacks. It entices you to abandon stops. Every fluctuation is a question. Will you remain disciplined? Execution without fear requires that you answer the same way every time. Yes, when your plan signals entry. Yes, when your stop is hit. No, when the setup is incomplete. No, when emotion urges impulse. Consistency quiets the mind. Inconsistency feeds anxiety. Let me speak of position sizing, for it is here that many traders unknowingly sabotage themselves. If your size is too large relative to your capital and tolerance, your nervous system will revolt. You will watch every tick with dread. You will interpret normal fluctuation as catastrophe. You will hesitate not because the setup is flawed, but because the risk is excessive. Reduce your size until the movement of the tape no longer disturbs your composure. There is no shame in trading smaller. There is great shame in trading beyond your emotional capacity. I learned that lesson through painful reversals. Large swings in fortune do not merely affect the bank account, they scar the psyche. When your losses exceed your tolerance, your mind becomes defensive. And a defensive mind cannot execute freely. Freedom in speculation comes from defined risk. When you know precisely what you stand to lose, and you have accepted it fully before entry, fear diminishes. You have already paid the emotional cost in advance. Acceptance is the antidote to hesitation. Before you place a trade, ask yourself, if this stop is hit immediately, will I remain composed? If the answer is no, your size is too large or your conviction too weak. Conviction is not stubbornness. It is alignment between your analysis, your rules, and your risk tolerance. When these are aligned, execution becomes natural. Another subtle enemy of fearless execution is overtrading. The mind grows fatigued by constant decision-making. When you attempt to trade every fluctuation, you deplete your psychological reserves. By the time a true opportunity appears, you are exhausted, and exhaustion magnifies fear. Patience conserves mental energy. In our previous teachings about sitting tight and waiting for the proper moment, I emphasized that inactivity is often the most profitable decision. That principle applies here as well. When you trade less but with greater selectivity, your confidence in each action increases. Execution without fear is easier when opportunities are rare and clear. Now I want you to consider your internal dialogue. When the tape moves in your favor, do you think, I hope this continues? And when it moves against you, do you think, maybe it will come back? Hope and maybe are dangerous words in speculation. Replace them with structure. If it holds above this level, I remain. If it breaks below my stop, I exit. No negotiation. The mind seeks comfort. Structure provides it. Over time, this structured approach rewires your response to uncertainty. The tape becomes information rather than threat. You begin to observe rather than react. And in that observation, fear loses intensity. But this transformation does not occur overnight. It is built through repetition, through days when you execute correctly despite discomfort, through weeks when you honor stops without argument, through months when you review your journal and confront your weaknesses honestly. That is why I insist again, keep a record. In the Livermore Journal, a 90-day trading psychology workbook, the purpose is not merely to log entries and exits, it is to expose patterns of hesitation. When do you freeze? After losses, after wins, during volatility? Once you identify the pattern, you can design countermeasures. Self-awareness precedes mastery. You cannot eliminate fear you refuse to examine. The tape will always fluctuate. News will always surprise. Opinions will always conflict. But your conduct, that is within your control. And here is the great revelation. When you shift your focus from predicting outcomes to perfecting execution, fear diminishes naturally. Because you are no longer attempting to control the uncontrollable. You are controlling yourself. And that, my friend, is the only battlefield that matters. In the next part of our conversation, we will go deeper into conditioning your nervous system, how repetition reshapes response, how detachment from individual outcomes strengthens conviction, and how you build a mind that acts with calm precision even in the midst of violent market movement. For now, reflect carefully on this foundation. Fear is not removed by analysis. It is reduced by structure, repetition, and disciplined action. If you are to execute without fear, you must train not only your intellect but your nervous system. When I was a young man studying price movements in bucket shops, I believed the battle was purely analytical. I thought if I could read the tape well enough, hesitation would vanish. But the truth revealed itself over years of triumph and disaster. The body reacts to financial risk as if it were physical threat. Loss triggers the same alarm as injury. That is why repetition is so powerful. When you repeatedly take properly sized trades where the risk is fully accepted and manageable, your nervous system begins to adapt. What once felt threatening becomes familiar. What once caused panic becomes routine. This is conditioning. If, however, you repeatedly take oversized positions, violate stops, or allow losses to spiral, you condition yourself in the opposite direction. You train your body to associate trading with trauma, and then, Even when a high-quality opportunity appears, your system resists. Hesitation becomes automatic. So the first rule of conditioning is this: never traumatize your own mind. Keep your risk small enough that a loss is information, not devastation. When a stop is hit, the proper response should be calm evaluation, not emotional recovery. If you need days to recover from a single loss, your size is too large. I learned this lesson painfully. After great losses, I found that the most difficult challenge was not rebuilding capital. It was rebuilding confidence. The tape would align with my analysis, yet my hand would hesitate. Not because the setup was flawed, but because my memory of pain was fresh. Pain unprocessed becomes hesitation. You must process losses immediately and rationally. When stopped out, review the trade. Was it executed according to plan? If yes, then the loss was simply the cost of participation. If no, then the error lies in discipline, not in the market. Detach emotion from outcome. Attach emotion only to behavior. This is how you rewire the mind. There is another subtle discipline required for fearless execution: pre-commitment. Before the market opens, you decide not only where you will enter, but how you will behave. You decide that if your setup triggers, you will act. No internal debate, no last-second reinterpretation of data. Decision made in advance eliminates negotiation in the moment. Many of you suffer because you attempt to decide twice, once during preparation and again at execution. The second decision introduces doubt. The mind searches for additional confirmation because it fears responsibility. Remove the second decision. If the criteria are met, you execute. The thinking was done earlier. This is why I emphasize writing your rules. When rules exist only in memory, they shift with emotion. When they are written, they hold you accountable. In Thinking Like Jesse Livermore, Mastering the Market with Discipline, Patience, and Risk, I speak extensively about this principle, that speculation is not a game of brilliance, but of conduct. The sharpest mind in the room often fails because it cannot obey its own conclusions. Obedience to your plan builds quiet confidence. Confidence is not loud. It does not boast. It does not predict. It simply acts. You must also free yourself from the tyranny of recent outcomes. A string of losses can make the next valid setup feel dangerous. A string of wins can make the next mediocre setup feel irresistible. Both states distort perception. The tape does not know your recent record. Each opportunity stands alone. Train yourself to evaluate the current conditions without reference to your last trade. This requires mental discipline. After each session, close the book emotionally. Whether you won or lost, tomorrow is independent. Consistency across emotional states is mastery. Now let us speak about detachment. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means engagement without attachment to outcome. When you are attached to being right, you resist exiting when wrong. When you are attached to profit, you exit too early out of fear of losing it. Attachment breeds fear. Detachment breeds clarity. How do you cultivate detachment? Through statistical thinking. If your method has a proven edge over a large sample of trades, then any single outcome is irrelevant. You are playing a series, not a single hand. When you truly internalize this, execution becomes lighter. You no longer burden each trade with excessive importance. This is the mental shift from gambler to professional. The gambler seeks immediate validation. The professional seeks long-term consistency. If you find yourself thinking, "This trade must work," pause immediately. Replace that thought with, "This trade meets my criteria." That is sufficient. Criteria, not hope, justify action. Another powerful exercise is deliberate rehearsal. Before the market opens, visualize the tape moving into your level. See yourself placing the order calmly. See yourself honoring the stop without resistance. See yourself managing the position according to plan. The mind does not distinguish strongly between vivid rehearsal and experience. By rehearsing discipline, you reduce shock in real time. Athletes rehearse. Soldiers rehearse. Why should the speculator not rehearse? Execution without fear is built before the market opens. And now we arrive at something many overlook. Physical state influences financial decision-making. Fatigue amplifies fear. Stress outside the market seeps into your perception of risk. If your body is depleted, your tolerance for uncertainty shrinks. Take care of your instrument. Your mind resides within it. Trade when alert, rest when fatigued. Clarity requires energy. There were periods in my life when external pressures clouded my judgment. Personal turmoil, financial strain, reputational concerns, they all influence perception. When you carry emotional weight into the trading day, the tape feels heavier. Part of discipline is knowing when not to trade. Standing aside is not weakness. It is preservation. Now consider this carefully. The goal is not to eliminate fear entirely. The goal is to prevent fear from dictating behavior. You may still feel tension when committing capital. That is natural. But your actions must remain consistent regardless of that tension. Courage in speculation is not the absence of discomfort. It is adherence to your system in spite of it. Over time, something remarkable happens. The tape quickens, volatility increases, and instead of panic, you feel focus. Instead of hesitation, you feel readiness. Not because the market changed, but because you did. You begin to trust yourself, and self-trust is the foundation of fearless execution. But there is still one more layer, the deepest layer. It concerns identity. Many traders unconsciously define themselves by their results. A winning day elevates their mood. A losing day diminishes their self-worth. This is a dangerous foundation. If your identity rises and falls with the tape, fear will always have leverage over you. You must separate who you are from what you earn. You are not your last trade. You are your discipline. In the final part of this discussion, we will confront this identity directly. We will dismantle the need for validation from the market. We will build a mindset that acts from principle rather than emotion. And we will bring this to a powerful conclusion, one that leaves you not merely informed but transformed in how you approach execution. If this is resonating with you, I want you to do something before we continue. In the comments, write the word discipline. Not for me, for yourself, a declaration, a commitment, and if you have not yet explored our earlier teachings on patience, alignment, and the danger of ego and speculation, revisit them after this. They are connected. Each builds upon the other. You will find them linked in the description, along with Thinking Like Jesse Livermore, Mastering the Market with Discipline, Patience, and Risk, and The Livermore Journal, a 90-day trading psychology workbook. If you are serious about transforming your execution, use every tool available. Now take a breath. Now we arrive at the deepest layer, the layer most men avoid because it demands honesty. You do not fear the tape. You fear what the tape might say about you. If the trade fails, you feel exposed. If it succeeds, you feel validated. And in this silent exchange between outcome and identity, you have surrendered your emotional stability to something you cannot control. That is the final chain you must break. When I, Jesse Livermore, made my greatest fortunes, the public believed I possessed some mystical foresight. They imagined certainty. They imagined genius untouched by doubt. They were wrong. What I possessed, when I was at my best, was alignment between principle and action. And when I lost everything, it was never because the tape defeated me. It was because I violated my own principles. The market is impersonal. It neither praises nor condemns you. But you judge yourself relentlessly. If you wish to execute without fear, you must redefine success. Success is not a profitable trade. Success is flawless execution. A losing trade executed perfectly is a success. A winning trade executed impulsively is a failure. Most traders invert this definition, and because they do, they remain prisoners of emotion. They celebrate recklessness if it pays, they condemn discipline if it costs, and their nervous system never stabilizes. You must anchor your identity to conduct, not consequence. When your identity rests on discipline, the tape loses its emotional leverage. A stop hit is not a personal insult. It is simply data. A profit is not a triumph of ego. It is simply the reward for alignment. This shift from outcome-driven identity to principle-driven identity is liberation. Now consider the long horizon. Are you trading for this week, Or are you training for decades? The amateur seeks to win today. The professional seeks to survive indefinitely. When you extend your horizon, individual trades shrink in importance. Fear diminishes because the stakes of any single decision are small relative to the journey. I once said that the big money is not in the buying or the selling, but in the waiting. That waiting is not passive, it is disciplined restraint. And when the proper moment finally arrives, execution must be immediate, not because you are fearless, but because you have rehearsed that moment 100 times in preparation. You do not rise to the level of your ambition. You fall to the level of your training. If your training consists of hesitation, impulse, and emotional reaction, that is what will surface under pressure. But if your training consists of written plans, defined risk, proper sizing, journaling, and honest review, that is what will emerge when the tape accelerates. Training determines behavior. This is why I urge you again. Use structure. Use repetition. Use reflection. In the Livermore Journal, a 90-day trading psychology workbook, the purpose is not merely to record trades, but to confront the patterns that sabotage execution. Where did you hesitate? Why? After which type of outcome? Awareness is the beginning of mastery. And in Thinking Like Jesse Livermore, Mastering the Market with Discipline, Patience, and Risk, you will find the philosophical foundation beneath these practices. Philosophy without application is empty. Application without philosophy is unstable. You need both. They are linked in the description. Study them not as inspiration, but as training manuals. Now let me speak to you plainly. There will never come a day when the market feels entirely safe. There will never be a moment when uncertainty disappears. If you wait for that day, you will remain a spectator forever. Instead, you must become comfortable with discomfort. When the tape moves into your level and your criteria are met, you act. Not because you feel bold, not because you are certain, but because your plan requires it. That is strength. Strength is not aggression. It is consistency under pressure. You must also forgive yourself for past hesitation. Many traders carry regret like a stone in their pocket. They replay missed opportunities endlessly. If only I had entered. If only I had held. That backward gaze erodes confidence. Release it. Every professional has missed moves. Every professional has exited too early or entered too late. The difference is this. The professional extracts the lesson and moves forward without emotional residue. Your future execution cannot be clean if your mind is cluttered with old mistakes. Clean mind, clean action. And now I want you to imagine something. The tape begins to quicken, just as it did at the start of this conversation. Volume expands. The pattern you anticipated unfolds precisely as written in your plan. Your risk is defined. Your size is appropriate. Your stop is placed. You feel the familiar flicker of tension. But this time, there is no negotiation. You execute. No drama, no internal debate, no bargaining with uncertainty, simply action aligned with preparation. That is the trader you are building. Not fearless, but trained. Not reckless, but decisive. Not emotional, but disciplined. And here is the great irony. When you stop trying to eliminate fear and instead focus on perfecting execution, fear naturally diminishes. It fades into the background because it is no longer relevant to your behavior. You act from principle. That is freedom in speculation. If this message has struck you, if you recognize yourself in these struggles, then commit publicly. In the comments, write, "I execute my plan." Let it be a declaration of identity. Let it mark the beginning of a new standard. Then, after this video, deepen your training. Watch our previous lessons on patience, alignment with the market, and why intelligence alone fails the speculator. They are not separate ideas. They are chapters in the same discipline. They are linked in the description for your convenience. And while you are there, begin your structured transformation. Study Thinking Like Jesse Livermore, Mastering the Market with Discipline, Patience, and Risk. Work through the Livermore Journal, a 90-day trading psychology workbook. Do not merely read them. Apply them day by day, trade by trade. You wish to execute without fear. Now you understand the truth. Fear is not conquered in a single moment of courage. It is dissolved through disciplined repetition, defined risk, detached identity, and unwavering obedience to your own rules. The tape will move tomorrow. The opportunity will come again. When it does, the question will not be whether the market is ready. The question will be whether you are. Train your mind, strengthen your conduct, separate your identity from outcomes, and when the tape speaks, act. That is how fortunes are built. That is how confidence is earned. That is how you execute without fear.